Good morning. Makandang umaga, as they say in Tagalog. Welcome to the press meeting of the Guest of Honor 2025, the Philippines. First of all, I'd like to welcome all of today's speakers and the literary speakers. And Your Excellency, the Ambassador of the Philippines, I'd like to ask them to come forward for a photo opportunity.
Herzlichen Dank. Thank you.
Welcome to today's press meeting. I'm Ines Sacher, I'm PR Manager at Frankfurt Book Fair, and I will guide you through this press meeting. It will be both in German and in English. If you need translation into one or the other language, you can pick up headsets at the counter. I'd like to welcome in particular Her Excellency, the Ambassador of the Philippines, Irene Susan B. Natividad, and the Ambassador of Chile, Magdalena Api. And I'd like to welcome very warmly all of the representatives and members of the Philippine Guest of Honor delegation. We're very happy about their coming, and the authors and creative people and publishers from the Philippines. Welcome all. Now, just before, I read that in Manila, in the Philippines, it's 32 degrees, and most people know the Philippines as a tourist destination with wonderful beaches. But which book by a Philippine author have you read recently? In 1998, the Philippines came to Frankfurt for the first time. The country consists of 7,000 islands with a very interesting history in 180 languages, and we're very happy to welcome the Philippines in Frankfurt next year as the guest of honor in order to learn more about the literature and culture of the Philippines. So what can we expect in the next hour? I'd like to welcome very warmly our speakers on stage and in the first row. They will give you a little taste of the appearance of the Philippines as the guest of honor next year. I'd like to welcome Jürgen Bost, the director of the Frankfurt Book Fair, also Dante Francis Ang II, chairman of the National Book Development Board of the Philippines, Eric B. Zerrudo, managing director of the Philippine National Commission for Culture and the Arts, Karina Bolasco, the head and curator of the literary program, Patrick Flores, the curator of the Filipino Guest of Honor program, and our two literary speakers. In the first row, Dr. Jaya Jacobo. She's a transfeminine thinker and artist, and Ferdinand Benedict Tan. He's also better known as Budjette Tan, the creator of the legendary Trese comics. They are produced, or they are shown as an animated series on Netflix. So welcome to everybody here in the first row. Also, we will hear from the Philippine Senator Irene Legada. For reasons of her official activities, she is not able to be here in person, but we would like to welcome her, and she wants to welcome you. She will speak to you later, and afterwards we'll have time. Now, as the first speaker, I'd like to ask the director of the book fair, Jürgen Bost, to come on stage. Thank you, Ines. Good morning. Dear media representatives, journalists, I'm very happy that all of you are here, and in particular, I'd like to welcome Her Excellency, the Ambassador of the Republic of the Philippines, and all of the creative people of the Philippines and the representatives of the Guest of Honor delegation who are here. And Magdalena, I'm very happy. The ambassador is here with us, and the Czech colleagues, they will represent the next Guest of Honor country. They will also come soon. Well, Ines just mentioned 7,000 islands. It's even more, 7,641. And every island has a story to tell, and we want to hear them all. This story is exciting, and we really have to accept this diversity and be ready for it. With more than 100 million inhabitants, the Philippines are one of the biggest countries in the world. They rank 13th. However, literature from the Philippines is hardly known at all in Germany. Because of this, it's a great joy for me to welcome the Philippines as the Guest of Honor in 2025. It's rather delicate because I live in Heidelberg, and for many years I passed along the Rizal road next to the Neckar River, and Rizal lived in Heidelberg, and he wrote there, and he also lived in Berlin. And the Rizal street was mentioned after him. The Philippines will be the first Southeast Asian country to come to the Frankfurt Book Fair. We will hear a lot about the meaning of storytelling and today's cultural scene for the Filipino civil society. This year, the Philippines are here with many authors and publishing houses, and after the book fair, they will go to Heidelberg. Maybe you were here yesterday with Patricia Evangelista, a best-selling author whose book is on the list of the 10 best books in 2023, a list made up by New York Times. I was there, I listened to her, just great. Or you come to the Filipino event on Friday in Hall 1-2. It's about the topic of new adult publishing, or the event with tonight's literary speakers. Dr. Jaya Jacobo will be on the international stage and to speak about transfeminine writing. And Mr. Budjette Tan welcome his German-speaking fans, and please come to the Filipino National Stand in Hall 5-1, unless you've done so already. And next year we will learn more about authors and creative field illustrators from the Philippines. I look forward to that, very much so. And now I look forward to what our Filipino guests have to show us for the planned guest of honor appearance. And welcome. Well, thank you very much, Jürgen Bose, and we look forward to the stories from all of these islands and language spaces that we will learn more about at the Frankfurt Book Fair next year. The Filipino National Book Development Board plays a major role in the promotion of the Filipino book industry, and part of their effort is this appearance at the book fair. Because of this, I'm very happy to give the floor to Dante Francis Ang II, the chairman of the National Book Development Board of the Philippines.
Your Excellency, Ambassador Natividad, members of the Philippine delegation, Guten Morgen. It is my distinct honor to speak before you today on behalf of the National Book Development Board, or the NBDB, as we proudly prepare for our role as the guest of honor at the 2025 Frankfurt Buchmesse. This moment is not just a celebration of our country, it represents a significant milestone for our literary industry. It also reflects the culmination of years of dedicated work by the NBDB, its former leaders, our authors, publishers, and the cultural advocates who have championed this cause. Our journey began in 1998 when the NBDB first participated in the Frankfurt Book Fair with a humble 8 square meter stand featuring 302 titles from 45 publishers under the theme Centennial of the Philippine Independence. After a hiatus, the NBDB returned in 2015, following a strategic visit in 2014. Despite budget challenges, Ms. Karina Bolasco, then an NBDB board member and now head of the literary program for our guest of honor participation, sought the assistance of Senator Lauren Legarda, whose financial support was instrumental. Beyond funding, Senator Legarda's vision and unwavering backing paved the way for the Philippines to secure the guest of honor position. So this achievement was made possible through big dreams, strategic partnerships, and tireless collaboration. We owe special thanks to the National Commission for Culture and the Arts and the Department of Foreign Affairs for their invaluable collaboration. Their commitment ensures our guest of honor status at the 2025 Frankfurt Book Fair will not only highlight but elevate Philippine publishing industry, our authors, creatives, and the stories that define us. As we embark on this journey toward 2025, let us remember that this endeavor goes beyond books. It is about building cultural bridges, forging global partnerships, and presenting the richness of Filipino creativity on this important global platform. This honor belongs to the Filipino people, our authors, publishers, creatives, and workers in the publishing industry. Most importantly, the Philippines as guest of honor is for every person across our 7,641 islands and our diaspora. It is their stories that are at the heart of what we'll offer to the world. Thank you for being part of this exciting journey. We look forward to sharing the full spectrum of our literary imagination and enriching global literary conversations through the power of the written word. Maraming salamat, and may the Philippine literature continue to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Vielen herzlichen Dank.
Well, thank you very much.
When it comes to a guest of honor, it is a matter of also covering Filipino culture and literature, and this is the task for the National Commission for the Culture and Arts of the Philippines. And therefore, I would like to ask the Managing Director, Eric Zerrudo, forward.
ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues, friends of culture and literature, magandang umaga, guten Morgen, mabuhay. The National Commission for Culture and the Arts is deeply honored to support the Philippines' journey as the guest of honor at the 77th Frankfurt Book Fair in 2025. This opportunity to stand among the global literary community is not only a privilege, but a responsibility we embrace wholeheartedly. As we prepare for this landmark event, the NCCA, alongside with our partners, National Book Development Board, the Department of Foreign Affairs, and the Office of Senator Lauren Legarda, is working closely with the country's top talents, the private sector, and the publishing industry, along with its many stakeholders. Together, we are crafting a Guest of Honor program that highlights the deep connection between our nation's culture and heritage and the stories told by Filipino writers and creators. On behalf of the NCCA and our chair, Victorino Mapa Manalo, we extend our heartfelt gratitude for everyone's hard work. The imagination peoples the air. The theme of our Guest of Honor participation takes its inspiration from the passage in Noli Me Tangere, the first novel written by our national hero, Jose Rizal. In 1886, he arrived in Heidelberg, Germany by train. It was in Heidelberg where he studied ophthalmology and penned the poem To the Flowers of Heidelberg. He finished the final chapter of Noli Me Tangere in Wilhelmsfeld. Rizal later had it published by the Berliner Buchdruckerei Aktiengesellschaft Setzirenenschule des Lettvereins, that was a vocational school for women run by the Lette Association. Noli Me Tangere became the spark that ignited the Philippine Revolution against Spain, forever embedding itself in the history of our literature. Its blueprint, one that questions the idea of nationhood and Filipino identity, has continued to influence writers and artists until today. But what truly sets the Filipino literature apart is how it is deeply rooted in our rich culture and complex history. The richness of our history is embedded in our literature, art, music, and traditions. Our stories emerge from centuries of traditions, oral histories, and a remarkable fusion of pre-colonial practices with the influences of colonization. Our literature captures the vibrancy of our indigenous peoples, who pass down their wisdom and stories from generation to generation. This oral tradition, rich with epics, folk songs, and myths, has been the foundation of our creative expression long before the written word. Beyond this, our literature is also a living, breathing reflection of our present-day realities. It holds in its words and ideas our longings, aspirations, dreams, and hopes. It depicts our people's struggles, triumphs, and resilience. In fact, this ability to combine our indigenous roots, colonial past, and modern-day realities makes Filipino literature so captivating and unique in the world. It reveals a nation constantly in conversation with itself, forging an identity that is fluid as it is strong. All of this will be encoded and experienced by the world through the Philippine Pavilion in Frankfurt. Moreover, it is our vision that the program we present in Frankfurt Book Fair next year will foster meaningful global cross-cultural changes. This is especially relevant to a theme inspired by a book written by a man who was himself a polyglot and a traveler of the world. Rizal, like the millions of Filipinos in the diaspora today, carried with him the knowledge and experiences of different cultures. As we prepare for the Frankfurt Book Fair, we reaffirm our commitment to this mission, together with our partner agencies, the NBDB and the DFA. It is also fitting that we especially mention the visionary and tireless effort of Senator Lauren Legarda to make our participation happen. All these government agencies and its people are giving the earnest effort to ensure that our stories and voices are heard by the world. Thank you, and we look forward to sharing this journey with all of you. Maraming salamat po. Vielen Dank.
Thank you very much, Eric Zerrudo, für die Einblicke in die.
Thank you very much for these insights into your history and your cultural history. As was mentioned before, Senator Lauren Legarda is a main driver behind this guest of honor role, cannot be here today, but she has sent us a video message which we'll see now.
It's truly worthwhile. It's never been an easy endeavor. We knew this as soon as we began taking our steps towards becoming the guest of honor at the Frankfurt Book Fair. For 15 years, the Philippines had been absent from this prestigious event, missing from the international stage of the publishing industry. When we made our return in 2015, it sparked a old question in our mind. Why not the Philippines?
Danke für die
Thank you for this message from Manila. And let's return to our speakers on stage. As a next speaker, you will be given a glimpse of Filipino literature and publishing, and you will be given this by Karina Bolasco, the head of the literary program.
Guten Morgen, magandang umaga. We're a community of 70 people who flew over. May I ask all the Filipinos who flew over our community to stand up? Thank you. Thank you. Philippine literature is as packed and as rich as its history of conquest and resistance. It is vibrant with epics, myths, and stories that have survived almost 4 centuries of colonization. And these have been passed on from generation to generation by word of mouth and by printers' ink, and have continued to influence and shape, to some degree or another, contemporary writing in all its new and varied forms, such as speculative fiction, climate fiction, graphic novels and comics, and new adult. What we have is a uniquely Filipino mesh of cultures, indigenous and Southeast Asian, overlain with European Old World, with American education, and expressed in the clear, undeniable voice of the young and the contemporary. More than 30% of our population are young people who, with such fresh energy, bear exciting new ideas in both literary content and form. One of our respected women journalists and essayists, known for her wit and irreverence, the late Carmen Guerrero Nakpil, said in her book of essays, Not Woman Enough, she sums it up as Filipinos having been raised in a convent for 331 years and in Hollywood for 50 years. She makes light of it but doesn't dismiss it, this national trauma of ours that explains our being a bundle of contradictions. It has certainly made our literature and writing interesting and unpredictable, rousing and spirited. National Artist for Literature, Bienvenido Lombera, looked at our literary development as, and I quote, an alternation of assertion and acquiescence by the Filipino creative imagination within a cultural setting fostered by our people's interaction with 2 different colonial masters, close quotes. Every story comes from an intercultural process, whether or not the writer is aware of it. Our people speak 135 languages, all bullied out of publishing by the dominant English until in the 90s when the Tagalog romance paperbacks became runaway bestsellers. 2% of our total population live and work abroad. These are the communities of overseas workers in the logistics and the health services who read the Tagalog paperback romances, exported to them from Manila. Their international schools also buy their textbooks from Manila publishers. There is literature being written among them, mostly on online platforms like Wattpad and others. Their individual interaction with host countries enriches or politically colors their writing, or both. Their collective experience is made even more distinctive and diverse, and so with the writing and other artistic pursuits. National Artist for Literature Nick Joaquin, who the Senator mentioned earlier, whose writing, according to many, is unmatched in his generation, believes the overlaying of cultures on top of the native and the Asian is not trauma or victimization of colonial subjects, but the enrichment of a people who welcome the tools and technologies Spain brought to the islands. He says in his classic book, Culture and History, we should abandon the what-ifs and be at peace with our past and even take pride in our hybrid heritage. A revered woman fictionist and feminist, Ninochka Rosca, swears, and I quote, Joaquin's English has the melody of Spanish and Tagalog. Joaquin was the first Filipino writer to focus on the impossible contradictions of a tribal civilization overlain by Spanish and American worldviews. And because that tribal civilization was, she says, was woman-centered, Joaquin's women characters are complex, romantic, and defiant. The Filipino literary landscape is vibrant with book launches, readings, and signings, writing workshops, literary contests, and book awards, fairs, and festivals. Indie presses are making a mark for themselves and winning awards and prizes for their books. Regional indie presses like Savage Mind, Aklat Alamid, and Kasing Kasing Press are now established entities in our localities, in their localities. They publish in their local languages, and more are emerging. In 2023, that's last year, the number of new titles or new books released was 10,297, may not be that high compared to the neighboring countries, but the highest ever in the last 10 years. Production is across genres, children's books, crime, fiction, romance, in English and Filipino, graphic novels and comics, academic and scholarly, biographies and memoirs, poetry and fiction. Overall sales, as reported to the Book Board by publishers, went up to 11.1 billion in 2023. There's a robust network of distribution and purchase points, making sure books reach readers. The biggest boost came with the pandemic. This was online stores like Shopee and Lazada that included books in their product range without the huge commission brick-and-mortar stores asked for. Some publishers doubled, even tripled their sales. A related upside of the pandemic was digital acceleration. For most, if not all businesses, suddenly cashless payments and online fund transfers became the norm. Our e-commerce has yet to catch up with that of neighboring countries, but the potential has never been as real. Data Reporter says there are 117.4 million active mobile connections in the Philippines. In early 2024, that's about 107.6% of the total population. Statista.com, a global data and business intelligence platform, estimates that the $15 billion e-commerce market in 2022 will grow to $60 billion by 2030. For a country where people still struggle for basic necessities, books need not be purchased.
Immer noch schwierig. Das ist ja ein
Libraries. In a few provinces and cities, local governments actively maintain libraries, yet the challenge remains to build the infrastructure for a functioning nationwide public network. There are various private sector initiatives which supplement public libraries. They also collect and distribute book donations. The Book Board in 2021 set up a network of alternative reading spaces. That's the map for that. They're called the Book Nooks, and they are now in 113 spaces. There are no literary agents in our publishing firmament. Publishers are designated to represent their authors so that between them is a thing more than a professional relationship. When it's good and equal, it evolves into a friendship. The Palanca Prize that gives prizes in 20 categories, yielding 50-plus prize winners every year, is on its 74th year and remains to be the most prestigious literary prize for any work. It has become almost like a rite of passage for every writer. Its categories include writing in regional languages. The Manila Critics Circle has been recognizing the best books for 43 years now. Two writers' organizations, PEN Philippines is 67 years old, and UMPIL, or the Writers' Union of the Philippines, just celebrated its golden anniversary. The 62-year-old Siliman Writers' Workshop is the longest-running university-based workshop in Asia today. 5 other top universities also host such summer workshops. The Manila International Book Fair is on its 45th year. So these are all long-held, beloved literary traditions, the backbone of literature, the pillars of literary creativity. Simply put, they cover the literary cycle of life: writing, community, recognition, and readership. The writing enabled by technology that has been democratized has in the last decade been getting the attention of publishers abroad, whether small or big. In the 90s, our writers who wanted to break into the international market had to migrate to New York or London. That is no longer the case. We have writers who remain in their hometowns, some even in the South, and get published by US big presses or indie presses. Some have become book trade professionals for international companies, not just as writers, but also as editors, illustrators, and graphic or book designers. They stay put at home and yet deliver. So as one of our writers, fictionist, prize-winning poet and fictionist, who migrated to New York in the 90s, and if I may quote him, every writer contributes to a collective voice that seeks and defines who we are and where we are heading. Ours is a complicated history, and we are multitudes all over the world. While scholars can argue this many ways, we believe all texts written within a nation or a notion of that nation constitute our literary identity and heritage, which, taking note of our country's long history of diaspora, is a fluid concept. We know what books are. They are inhabited by the spirit of the times. They are fleshed out by curious, brilliant minds. They are forged by creative and imaginative forces, haunted by the ghosts of revolutions past, moved by the psyche of every new generation, and shaped by the life force of nature and our struggles with it. Inspired by the wisdom of our ancestors and sustained by the anima of a safe and just future. Books engender other arts and inform cultural practice. They cross over to films and theater. We book people know books so intimately, and we celebrate them every chance we get. I end with a picture of our 3 living national artists for literature who, their health situations permitting, we hope will join us next year to grace our guest of honor pavilion. There are Resil Mojares on the left. Resil is our leading homegrown scholar and intellectual who is Professor Emeritus at the University of San Carlos in Cebu, in the Visayas Island. Virgilio Almario, our very prolific poet in Filipino, translator par excellence, and a passionate lexicographer. And Hemino Abad, the latest to be given the Order of National Artist in 2022, a beloved poet in English, which he considers is a Philippine language. He's a literary historian and anthologist of the best works, be they poetry or fiction. And to end, reality, in the story of our literary landscape, I shall quote a line from his poem, "The future is shaped by words." Danke. Danke.
Danke, vielen Dank. Karina.
Thank you very much, Karina Bolasco. This information, of course, can also be found in today's media file that you also can read online if you wish, or get it from the counter if you want to have these figures documented for your reporting. Today we heard several times to learn, we've heard about the special motto of the guest of honor, and for this I give the floor to Catherine Flores.
Grace the halls of this grand book fair next year, inspired by the history of a complex country, the creative promise of its people, and the lasting intelligence of its quintessential hero, Jose Rizal, who wrote and published his incendiary novel No Limitang in Germany 9 years before the Philippine Revolution against the Spanish Empire. The presence of the Philippines will take the form of an atmosphere, animated by an enigmatic line from the said novel of Rizal, in which the character Sisa in the act of waiting deep into the night for her seemingly vanishing children, Crispin and Basilio, begins to sense things and spirits around her. The imagination peoples the air with specters, says Rizal, translated by Charles Derbyshire from the original Spanish, which reads, La imaginación puebla el aire de espectros. In the ominous episode, Sisa's restless mind would stray and mutate, startled by the howling of a black dog. Rizal describes the condition of darkness as steaming, as the night is disposed to belief or the temptation of enchantment, the liminal moment when the mind is haunted by apparitions. These visions creep into the body of an anguished but plaintive Sisa, and Rizal poignantly stages this turning away from consciousness and slipping into the edge of another dimension. And I quote, "Suddenly she felt her hair rise on her head, and her eyes stared wildly. Illusion or reality, she saw Crispin standing by the fireplace." End of quote. While Derbyshire translates imaginación as imagination, in the context of Sisa's life as a distraught but resolute woman, her belief in possibility may be more sharply seen as speculative rather than a fully formed object like an imagination. Thus, the Filipino term hiwatig becomes more nuanced because it considers premonition, instinct, presentiment, suspicion, and so on. It is more openly preternatural and therefore more mystical than exclusively humanist. The imagination peoples the air thus becomes, in the more elusive Filipino language, pinupuno ang hangin ng hiwatig. The poetry here evokes the power of the book as the source of imagination and speculation. The noun people becomes a verb that signifies the fleshing out of the atmosphere. Nature and history, ethos and ecology come together beautifully in this belonging. The key words of imagination, people, and air allude to the elements of the writing and reading environment, the producers and receivers of texts, the talent of the individual who reads and writes, and the community gathered by the air emanating from and animating books. For Filipinos, at the heart of books is the potential of sharing, a collective aspiration to be present in the world of stories, ideas, mythologies, fantasies, migration, struggles, and the future. The guest of honor pavilion will be the space, the climate for this sharing. It will be a great honor for the Philippines to people the air of Frankfurt next year with its vital intuition and the excitement of its vision. Thank you very much.
Vielen Dank. Darauf freuen wir uns auch schon sehr.
Thank you. We're looking forward to this too. And those of you, or those who are at the center of this guest of honor appearance, are the authors and their works. Because of this, we're very happy to have two authors from the Philippines amongst us. We'll talk about their works. And first of all, I'd like to ask Jaya Jacobo. She's a transfeminine thinker and artist, and she will talk about her work.
Friends and colleagues, Diyos sa marhay na aga. Good morning. I am most pleased to celebrate with you all the Philippines, my country and nation, as guests of honor of the 77th Frankfurt Book Fair in 2025. And I'm even more delighted to have been invited to perform a piece from my book of poetry to mark out such an auspicious occasion. I wrote my book in Filipino, a language which I have laid claim to from my mother tongue, Bicol, spoken by almost 3 million Filipino peoples on the peninsula and beyond in the Ibalan diaspora. The poetic tradition of my country, the Philippines, is grounded in the conditions of creation, premised on the comparison of seemingly disparate thoughts and things, in the end affirming a world that remains whole after nearly being broken, and in many instances as well, absolute decimation. This premise of the poetic is called the talinghaga, indeed metaphor, but also something more, as the diversity of concepts given permission to hover around one, and the objects that hold them in place, traverses the borders of language as well as existence itself, in order for a gender of being to be always affirmed and never nullified from poem to poem. In my region of the tropics, the tenure of this trope could be appreciated in the Rawit Dawit, a song suspended in time sublime that is in midair, and almost at all times landing on a soil both dammed and nourished by magma, quake, and all manner of tempest. In the chapter of the novel of the national hero, written in Germany, and from where the theme of the Philippine Pavilion is taken, the poetics of speculation, elegantly articulated by Professor Flores, is conjured in that space and time between thought and thing, that is, before the flights of image and a metaphor that carries it down to the earth, where the gender of the imagination ultimately belongs to a woman failed by empire and frustrated even more by the country of her affections. And yet, the author, a poet himself, exalts this woman not only as a person of lofty intellect, but above all, a human of celestial circumspection. The sentiment that propels this intuition might stem from fear or despair, but because her mind is nonetheless given the vision of a future, however inescapably dire, the feeling remains a tribute to the theoretical capacity that only the feminine can access with equal parts doom and thrill, disavowal and anticipation. Moreover, that this consciousness populates the atmosphere also reminds us that a woman's reproductive nature surpasses the body, even as she herself remains embodied and earthbound. This is the affirmative poetic of a woman on the brink of a breakthrough of experience, that it can only be the feminine who will foremostly realize the mental negations the colonial state would impugn on the already wounded body. I therefore offer this poem from my debut volume, Arasajas, first published by Christians in Don Cordero Savage Mind and translated by Christian Jill Benitez, to the women of my country, including the women who have crossed the boundaries of theory and embodiment to become the splendid truth of themselves alongside the air above, the earth in between, and the oceans below them. Hiyas. Ang perlas na dapat nasa loob ng kabibe, hayot nakalaylay sa dulo ng sanga, at ang duhat na sana'y naghantong doon, hiyas na babantayan ng dakilang pugita. Halos ganito nga ang pakiramdam ng nalalaos sa hangarin, nagkakanda bali-baliktad ang binahagdan na ng ulirat. Umitim ang hiyas sa ilalim ng dagat, nagkalamat buto, naku, maaagnas. At ang hiyas sa ituktok ng punong kahoy, abay pumutit, medyo may kabigatan, bahagyaman itong bumanaag. Iyong para sa walang habas na sorpresa, palay na ibinilad sa tanghaling tapat. At ang laan para sa takdang unos, kagabi kumukulapol na langis sa tubig na lamang sa batalan. Gayunpaman, ano pa rin ang sayang kung magkapalit hiyas sa hiyas, gayon din ang salot, kumpas lamang ay rigodon. Nalalaos, di na naghahangad, ibinunto ng abot kayang duhat sa abot diling perlas. Ang nasa hinayaang madarang, maaaring masagasaan, nagparayat nagwaldas, mahahalang sa abagat. Mababaliw pa kung maghunyangong muli ang hangad. The pearl, meant to be inside the shell, there it hangs now, at the end of a branch, and the plum to dangle in its place, a gem now, guarded by giant devilfish. This must be how to wither in desire, everything out of place where the mind has one placed. The darkened gem in the ocean turns seed and flesh, oh, decaying now. And the gem to be picked there, white and heavy now, even as it glistens in the sun. The ruthless surprise now, rice grains dried under midnight sun. And the gift for the coming storm, where water, mere water and oil, staining sink last night. And yet, what is lost if they change places, a gem with another gem, like plague merely dancing in circles, withering no longer desire. Turn the reachable plum to unfathomable pearl. Desire, let a blaze perhaps overrun, letting go, losing away, madness in the monsoon rain, and only more madness must desire once more wilden. Diyos amabulos. Maraming salamat. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Dank.
So now we move from Filipino poetry to graphic novels, and I would like to pass on to the second literary speaker now, Ferdinand Benedict Tan, better known as Budjette Tan, and as we've heard before, he is the author of Trese, which has been put into film.
Morning. So strange to be called Ferdinand Benedict. That's what my mother calls me when she's angry at me. My name is Budjette. I'm not here to talk about economics or finance. That's not me. I'm here to talk about our comic book about the supernatural side of Metro Manila. They said I should talk about our journey of how me and my partner, Kadjo Baldissimo, back in 2005, self-published our comic book, Trese, which is about a detective that investigates supernatural crime. We self-published it and sold it for less than $1 for 2 years until we had enough stories to pitch. And we found Nida Ramirez, who saw potential in this little Xeroxed comic book, and she's been our publisher ever since. I can talk about how just this year, the German edition of Trese got published thanks to the efforts and help of Paulo Heras from Comiket. And how eventually, of course, it ended up on Netflix. But I have an hour to talk about that tomorrow. So for today, let me take you on a tour on the supernatural side of Manila. There is a 400-year-old church in Manila, and a lot of people go there praying for miracles. Funnily enough, right outside that Catholic church are a group of vendors selling supposedly magical amulets. There are amulets that are supposed to give you strength, that is supposed to heal you, and some amulets and potions that will supposedly help you have a baby. But if you are looking for someone, a missing person, look for the lady selling fish who has a black cat on her lap. If you are looking for someone, for example, like a runaway child, a loved one who's been kidnapped, or a cheating husband who never went home, find the lady, buy one fish, and give it to the cat. If the cat accepts it, show the picture to the lady, and she will magically connect to all of the cats in the city and find the one you lost. In this magical city, of course, it means that crime takes a turn for the weird. There are drug dealers that sell magical pills that give you the powers of the enchanted just for one night. There are kidnappers who grow bat wings and fly and steal children from the highest condominiums. And there are demon horses, tikbalang, who decide to drag race along the highway, causing multiple accidents. So when crime takes a turn for the weird, that's when the police call Alexandra Trese. For generations, her family has maintained the balance between our world and the underworld. She is the Babaylan Mandirigma, the healer, warrior, and defender of the city. So, are you now ready to visit Manila? I suggest you bring garlic to protect you from the aswang or the vampires, salt to keep the spirits away, and don't worry, Alexandra Trese will be right by your side. Thank you.
Thank you, Budjette, für diese kleine literarische Reise durch Manila. Damit kommen wir auch zum letzten Punkt für heute.
And now on to the last point. You can ask your questions. I'd like to ask Patrick Turek to come forward. Patrick Flores, he will give you the audio-visual presentation with the guest of honor motto. He will present it.
Introduce a short film on the place of the book and literature in Philippine social life, guided by the vision that the imagination peoples the air. It considers reading and writing in the Philippines as a way of sharing stories across time and place, between islands and continents, within ethnic communities and beyond national boundaries, among languages and generations. Binding this generous talent and effort is a struggle for freedom against colonial falsehood and anything that refuses the light of learning. The film is an animation, a tribute to the dynamic artistry of Filipino animators all over the world, as well as the ever-present childlike fascination with the element of fire, the mingling of image and text, the sheltering sky, the mystery of stars, the heroism of ancestors, and the illumination of independence. Animation as a discipline is sustained by the lively ecology of the Philippine comics and the graphic novel that is thriving with the rise of independent creators and publishers, digital platforms, conventions, a renewed interest in Philippine mythology and history, and the global recognition of and wide public support for daring narratives around the future, sexuality and spirituality, everyday survival and transformation. The film is titled Pinupuno ang Hangin ng Hiwatig, or the imagination peoples the air, a theme that springs from the national heroes novel of a colonial society and the potential revolution against it. It is made by Mervyn Malonzo, written by Rodi Vera, music by Chino Toledo, under the creative direction of Jose Estrella, and with subtitles in English by Philip Kimpo. Thank you.
Pagkaraan, natutong itala ang mga diwa at kahulugan. Ang karunungan ay hindi na lamang binibigkas, kundi sinusulat. At ang sinulat ay binabasa na nagdulot ng mas malalim na unawa. Tinig at panulat ang naging paraan sa paglaganap ng kaalaman. Makaraan ng mga dantaon ng pagsalin at paglaganap, ang daloy ng kaalamang ito'y natanto ng isang murang isip na manghang-mangha sa yaman ng karunungang lumalim na't lumago. Niyapos nitong paslit ang karunungang ito sa anyo ng isang munting alab na sumunog sa gamu-gamong naakit sa liyab. Sa puso niya nag-alab at natutuhan na ang karunungay hindi sinasaulo lamang, kundi pinagyayama't sinusuri. Tinitiyak hanggang matuklasan ang isang katotohanan. Bilanggo pala ang kaisipan na siya ring nag-udyok ng pagbalikwas. At sa sandaling iyon, nasilip niya ang bighanit kapangyarihan ng paglaya. Ang kalaya ay naging maalab na pangarap ng inaliping pag-iisip na nagbunsod ng pagbabagong makamit ang minimithi. Ang malayang kaisipang ito'y umuugnay sa mga haraya sa iba pang panig ng daigdig. Pumailan lang ang mga tipak ng diwa na parang mga saranggolang matitingkad. Ang karunungang bayan pala'y pandaigdigan. Magpahanggang ngayon, pinupuno ng imahinasyon ang papawirin nitong bayang patuloy na kinakamit ang ganap na kalayaan.
Vielen Dank.
Thanks a lot. And thank you to all the speakers today. So we are bursting with anticipation for your guest of honor role. And I would like to say goodbye to our viewers on the live stream. Thank you for being with us. And those here in the room still have the chance to ask questions of our speakers. We've got microphones waiting for you. Please just raise your hands with your names and the media you are writing for or broadcasting for. Otherwise, if you would like to make interviews and record sound, it is possible to go over to Hall 4.0, to the foyer, and there is a Frankfurt Studio there, and then you can have brief interviews with our speakers. And please leave your cards here at the counter